This is the first episode of Ironmade. Ironmade, why Ironmade? Because we have the one and only Kevin Byers here from Ironmade Gym.
You don't have to know a lot of things in order to make a huge difference for the Lord in the world. But you do need to know a few things that are great and be willing to live for them and die for them.
Will I let Jesus prove to me that he's truly my strength? To let him prove inside of me that through him I can do all things.
The True Strength Life Podcast with Aaron Simpkins.
And where's Ironmade Gym at? What's up, Kevin?
Located in Middletown, Ohio.
Middletown, Ohio. So if you're there in the area or really just like in the country, the best gym to go to is Ironmade Gym. And now you know. And so I brought him on. He's a good buddy of mine, and I trust his opinion and his thoughts on things, especially with health, because he's an expert in the field. He may not think so, but he is. Like he just told me, he's an expert only by how many times he failed. But hey, that's okay too. You still ended up an expert. So, how long have you been an actual trainer?
Going on 7 years full-time personal training.
There you go. 7 years full time. You see a lot of stuff in that time, I'm sure. And deal with a lot of different types of bodies too. And ages and all kinds of things. So this is the Ironmade show that I want to do. Hopefully we're going to do this every few weeks. I want to have this be specifically, mostly health related topics and information, because I want to do our, small part through this podcast of making America healthy again. And I know Kevin, likes that too. And he's already, he's been doing that obviously through his gym and through his training. But health is a major issue in America. And it's a shame because we live in the day and age of information, where all of this information that we know and is out there is available to everybody. But unfortunately, a lot of people still just don't know it, and sometimes don't even know where to find it, because there is so much information. A lot of it is bad also. So how do we kind of go through that? So that's why I brought on the expert here. And so I want to do this because, again, we all collectively need to get healthier, and I am a perfect example of that. I need to get healthier. So I'm sitting here actually excited to have these conversations with you because I want to learn more myself, and also be challenged by and convicted by what you're going to be saying, because I need to apply a lot of this to myself too. I can tell you right now, just being honest, we're recording this, the beginning of the year, January, what is it, 2nd, 3rd. So we're, peak, everybody joins the gym season. And I'm pretty sure that through the end of November to now, I probably gained about 10 pounds. Yeah, you're shaking your head over there. I know. So I need to be more disciplined. I need to make better choices. And I've always said, this isn't a good thing. I'm not saying this is a good thing, but I've always said that I'm one of the worst people because I do know a lot of this stuff, and I've known a lot of this stuff for a long time, but I haven't lived it consistently. So in a sense, I'm a hypocrite. So I want to be more pushed more and challenged more, because I need to be more disciplined and consistent with my own health. So also going on, we're in the middle of winter season. Things like that is when a lot of people tend to get sick, and so we need to build up our immune systems and things like that. So now that I've already talked your ear off, Kevin, what would be a simple answer you may give or think of to just what is good health for somebody?
What is good health? I would say something that's sustainable for a long period of time. Especially now, since we're in the beginning of the new year, everyone wants to think of New Year's resolutions and things like that. But I like thinking of the 5 rule. So if I make one decision, how's it going to affect me in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? If you can't sustain something for a long period of time, you have to question, is it worth even starting to begin with? And something that's helped me throughout the last couple of years of my life is thinking of things in seasons. So maybe there is something that for 5 months would be extremely beneficial for you to apply for that season. But if it's not going to benefit you for the 5 years, 50 years, then is there a reason to even start it?
See, I've never heard that put like that before. So that was good. I'm already learning.
I think one of the things people overcomplicate the whole getting in shape type of a thing. Strength is one of the biggest keys to longevity. And if you think of big things that'll keep you going longevity wise, hydration, sleep, nutrition, training, if you devote yourself to one of those, you're going to recognize that one of the other ones is failing. And if you want to be good at one of them, if you want to be great at one of them, then you're going to have to increase the quality of the other ones. So once you start stacking up those dominoes, then you really start living your best life.
That's good. That's good and immediately off the bat challenging to me. Yeah, because I know I know my eating and my sleeping has not been great. Yeah. So let's talk. I think like when it comes to a lot of, I guess we'll go down to the very basics. Again, we're starting the year. A lot of new people, are going to try to jump on the health train and start training and eat, trying to eat better and things like that. So especially for those type of people right now, let's go down to the basics. As far as like movement and exercise, what would tend to be some things you'd like to think about and try to start to implement for people like that?
So studying lots of different programs, whether it's the Westside Conjugate Training System or a periodization method or a bodybuilding hypertrophy method, anything will work for anybody as long as you devote your whole training to something. Because if you only do 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 weeks of something, you can't say this succeeded or failed if your sleep, hydration, nutrition, all those aren't up to par as well. So I think doing something and devoting yourself to it, whether it's push-pull or even just body weight stuff in your own house of Monday I'm doing push-ups, Tuesday I'm doing squats, Wednesday I'm doing dips. If you just did that religiously until failure or until you were challenged, you're going to notice results anyways. So I think just starting with small things will help get the ball rolling and document things. Notice how you're feeling, notice how you're changing, things like that, becoming more self-aware. That helps you gauge where you're at and where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, you always notice for people who have never really done it, never really devoted themselves to this, you'll notice big differences right away. Is that correct? As long as you stick to it, that the very beginning few weeks, few months is when you will notice a big change. Like you said, if you're consistent with it. So what you're saying is any of those styles, disciplines you decide to go with, they do work as long as you devote yourself to it.
Yeah, because movement's medicine. So anything is going to be better than doing nothing for the most part.
Yeah.
Everything has a exceptional rule, of course, but movement's medicine, and that's going to keep you on the longevity train.
So you would you not necessarily? So you wouldn't say that necessarily there is a wrong one. You think they all can be right?
From where I'm sitting now, I wouldn't say that there is an extreme wrong method of doing or method to implement. I would be cautious of saying CrossFit's good for longevity, just from the point of a lot of jerky motions and where your joints are placed and things like that I don't think they translate well into everyday life. But it gets your heart rate up, it gets you moving weight, it challenges you, you're in a team atmosphere. So I think there's a lot of good things you can pull from that. But for the average person, you're not going to be doing hang cleans in life. You can do deadlifts in life. Everybody's going to be picking up and squatting things for the rest of their life. So I think those are good things to implement. But as far as like one bad thing, no, I don't at this point in my career see one bad program to follow.
Okay. So cautiously, go into CrossFit if that's the way you decide to go. But they all can work for you. Yeah. Now, so in other words, it's not like worldview or religion where there's only one right one. It's so that's exercise. Let's talk about the food part. The food and drinking part. Because that's obviously everybody, when they think about health, they think of movement and they think of, eating. So I guess I'll kind of ask the same question. As far as when it comes to, because everybody's minds also goes to like diets. I need to follow a certain diet, or eat this way for this amount of time or whatever. So what would you say as far as how should you think about your food, and then maybe you have a diet you love to follow, or you have different advice when it comes to food. So how would you approach that?
Yeah. So part of the struggle for me is I think it's crazy that we would classify eating a steak for lunch, hamburger for dinner, and eggs for breakfast being on a diet. But and you're yelled at for it. You know what I mean? Like you get those side eyes looks at you, but you go to McDonald's and you go to Dunkin' for breakfast and you eat out for dinner. That's the American normal, right? So I think that persona needs to switch in your brain to begin with. One of the easiest things to do, people talk about carnivore all the time now, but one of the reasons carnivore works so well for people is because it's basically an extreme elimination diet. So you're getting rid of your carbs, your processed food, your sugars, and you're only focusing on protein. But you can do that without going all carnivore if you just focus on your protein intake to begin with. Because once you take in your protein, you're going to be too full typically to eat the carbs, to eat the sugars after that, and you're not going to crave that type of thing. So if you want to take small steps, just increase your protein and decrease your processed food intake. If you want to take extreme, like maybe you have leaky gut syndrome or things like that, the carnivore might be something to consider because it's an extreme elimination diet.
Yeah, you're with most people, I think, obviously this is a general statement, but sugar and refined carbs is the problem. Not necessarily carbohydrates themselves, but refined carbs and sugars. And but unfortunately, the typical American diet, kind of what you said, is filled with that stuff. And we don't realize that that shouldn't be the majority of of our diet, or a big part of our diet, if anything, if it's even in there at all, like, it should just be very minimal. It shouldn't be, sugars involved in every single drink and every single food item we have, where in a lot of people's lives it is. Yeah, I think if you can eliminate sugar, or at least decrease it as much as possible, you're a big step ahead of the game just right there. What in your I'm curious about this. In your training people, what would you say, if you're able to even answer this, what would you say is the hardest thing for them generally to give up or to control in terms of eating?
I would have to say the ability to take control of decisions themselves. Meaning, I hear this, I'm Italian, I'll get crucified if I give up pasta on Sundays. Well,
yeah,
I'm not Italian, so I don't understand that. But wouldn't your family like to see you more healthy and live longer rather than eating pierogies with them, excessively every Sunday?
Yeah.
I don't know how that works, but those are just things that I've been told. And then I see the look on people's face when we talk nutrition. And he said, well, if you go, eat before, prep your food. So when your friends go out, you can sit there and have a good time, but it doesn't mean you have to buy the food. And they're just kind of like, what?
Yeah.
There's sacrifices along the way, but it's okay to be different.
Yeah, it's okay to be different, but what is the end outcome, or end outcome of being different? It's the fact that you're going to be healthy, and you're gonna feel better, you're gonna look better. Why not do that? Why would that be, that you being healthy should outweigh the one night you're out with your friends and you can't eat and drink whatever you want? Like you just said, you can still be out with them, but you're not making the same nutritional choices they are.
And even when you're outside of the gym atmosphere, if you look around, do you really want to be like everybody else?
Yeah.
And depending on what you believe, like, we're called to be set apart, and your body's a temple. So how are you as a dad? How are you as the husband leading your family in that?
I look in the mirror and I don't want to be like that.
It's our choice.
Yeah. I wrote it in my health paper. I wrote better choices equal better health. Yeah. So it's time for me to implement the stuff I know. So, and I think a lot of people, even first timers going into this, gym and eating better and all that. I want to say to you guys, try your best to mentally not worry about and get caught up in all the the people you see in that culture, in that gym culture, where oh, they have the six pack and oh, they're ripped and things like that. Like, that shouldn't worry you at all. Don't stress about that. What you need to start with, especially if if you're a little bit older and you've never really done this before, start with, can I sit up and down without it being an issue? Can I climb 2 flights of steps without having to take a breather at the top? If I had to chase after a kid that was running into the street, could I actually physically do it? I see people all the time, they cross the street and then it takes them 10 seconds to step up onto a curb, because they're so big, or they just have other issues where they're, they can't even, their flexibility, they can't do it. Things I think of just the everyday movements, like you said with deadlifts earlier. We're always going to need to just bend over and pick something up. And it doesn't have to be, a barbell, what we're talking about. It could be you dropped your pencil, you that, or you spilled a drink and now you want to bend down and clean it up on the floor. There's these movements, translate to everyday life situations. And so when I think of somebody getting healthier, I just want people to start with being able to do the regular things or the regular movements in everyday life that come up. I want them to be able to feel like they can do them confidently and not have to worry about every single step. Not have to worry about like, yeah, I want to go to the movies or I want to go to this theater, but I can't do the steps to get up, to the second level, or, I can't sit in a chair for that long, that type of thing. Like, I want people to just functionally be able to do regular stuff without it being a stressor to them. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And if you extrapolate that even further, what kind of grandparent do you want to be? Do you want to be able to pick your grandkids up off the floor and play baseball catch with them and all kinds of stuff like that? Or do you want to be the person stuck in the corner who can't get up and down watching them play?
Yeah, I have a grandma who's 82, and she is super active, like literally on the ground, rolling around on the floor, doing exercises with my kids, her great grandchildren. And that's because she's lived a life of, and this is somebody who's never stepped foot in a gym, and never, considered like, oh, have I had enough protein today, or have I, never anything like that. The only thing she's ever thought of is she knew to stay away from sugar. She knew that to keep moving, she had to stay moving. She always keeps her brain challenged. So like she lives at home now by herself. But like if she's not doing anything that day with other people, she's at home like doing puzzles or crosswords or, Sudoku or something like that. Cause she consciously knows she has to do that to keep her brain moving and challenged.
Use it or lose it.
Yeah. And, but through a whole life of doing those types of things. And the other one was she told me before, she said she never eats past when she's satisfied. So like, and this is all stuff that she's come to on her own. Like she just has come to do, know this and do this and implement this just all on her own without ever probably reading anything about health and fitness. But now on the back end, she's 82 and she's rolling around the floor with her great grandkids. Yeah. And she still can drive herself around and participates in all family events. And, she still does work at all of our houses just to stay active because she wants to. Like, it's not like us making her. She wants to come to and like weed my garden. And it like you said, it's awesome. Like you think about that. That's the long term. There's always a long term to our current choices, right? So I look at that as an example of starting now, implementing good health choices that can be our long term.
She doesn't eat past satisfied. That stuck out to me. That's big. Something that worked well, I feel like, for my family. I don't know if you deal with it all, but kids wasting food or just, general food waste. We have these bunch of different size of dishes and they're like that big, but the smallest one is like really small. Yeah. You could probably fit maybe like one cinnamon roll, medium sized cinnamon roll on it. And,
you went right to cinnamon rolls. That's interesting.
And, so the one day I was just like, all our family, we're just eating off these plates now because we never even used them before, and it helped eliminate food waste a lot. And but then if you're at the flip end as an adult and you don't want to overeat, smaller plate is a very simple thing to do. You don't need a gigantic plate. Whatever's on it. Eat your protein first, your veggies second, carbs last. Go from there.
See, and it can be simple stuff like that. Just go out and buy yourself 2 smaller size plates and tell yourself you're going to eat off of them for the next couple of weeks and then see how things turn out. Yeah. And I'm thinking about it. I was thinking about that as you were saying it. In our plate cabinet, we have next to each other, we have smaller plates, like medium sized plates, and then regular large size plates. And I always go to the large plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Huh. Um, so, all right, we've kind of said a lot about with food and exercise. Now, what would be ways you'd suggest to people to keep track of all this? Try to keep it organized, keep track of it, so they can start to follow like what is working, what may not be working, for them.
So for nutrition, I found the easiest way to use just apps, because you can scan things if you pay for the upgraded version. If you want to use the free version, you just have to type in what it is, and it'll bring it up, and it can calculate everything for you. It can also take in your goals, and you can say, I want to lose 1 pound a week or 1 pound a month, or I want to gain 5 pounds of muscle this month. And then you type it into MyFitnessPal what your goal is, and tells you what things you want to hit. I found that's very easy to track once you dedicate yourself to it, just like anything else. I think that's the easiest app to use. But once you start the journey of nutrition and sleep, I think it's how do you feel? How did you sleep last night? Did you wake up 5 times? Did you wake, all that thing comes into play. When you fix one, you feel like I need to fix the other one, and then you just the domino effect.
I just thought of this as you were saying, we're talking about apps and stuff and keeping track of things. What would be, I'm just curious, what is your approach towards, also the person that gets into this journey and they're like, oh, I need the latest, tech to like keep track of what's going on in my body and that kind of stuff, whether it's, it could be your Apple Watch. It could be, I forget the names of the stuff, but like, there's other trackers that you can wear. I'm not necessarily downing them. I'm just wondering, what would you say about somebody that thinks that too? Like, I got to get all the latest stuff.
Yeah. So there's a ring called the Aura Ring, and it'll even, the iPhone watch, I think, does it too, where you wear it at night when you sleep and you wake up, and it tells you what % charged your body is. And then you judge your energy expenditure on what battery life you have. I think everything can have a place, but how optimized do you want your life? How much more connected do you really want to be?
Yeah.
I've always told myself, like, if I didn't have a business, I really would not want a smartphone. I want to be more disconnected. We were on a vacation this summer, and it was 2 weeks without, I only had Wi-Fi. I had my phone off all day. I turned it on once in the morning, once at night, and like I felt great. It was fantastic. Subsequently, though, you go to explore all these cool places, and I barely have any pictures because I didn't have my phone on me or on. Yeah. So everything has a cost reward situation. But in life, I think you're going to run into a lot of if I only situations. And in those situations, I think you need to weigh the cost versus the reward of starting without it. One of the things I've been researching and really want is a sauna. But for me to say, I'm not going to get optimally health until I have the sauna, like that's the missing piece. That's not true. Like there's plenty of other things that I can do before I would ever get that. There's no one best recovery tool. There's no one best anything really. Just starting from what you have is the best case situation. And even though you said about your grandma, like she didn't say, I'm going to wait to get in shape until Aaron builds me a gym in his garage.
Yeah.
She did all that with not eating seed oils, cooking with butter, and eating beaten eggs. Like just movement.
Yep. And she has never once tried coffee in her life. She always drinks tea.
There you go.
Yeah. I found that's what blew me away when she told me that, because I know she's a tea drinker, but I'm like, you've never tried coffee? She's like, yeah, I never really saw a point for it. Yeah. Let's, in the last couple minutes here, let's touch on, I think the other two very important parts to think about: hydration and sleep. So let's talk about hydration. You were somebody who turned me on to, this was a while ago, but like turned me on to how important electrolytes and minerals and all were in our water, because like we can drink 2 gallons of water a day, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our body is hydrated the way it actually needs to be. So talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. One of the things that opened my eyes a little bit more to it was dealing with a neurologist out of Cleveland, and I showed him all the supplements I was taking, and it was from a recovery from a brain injury. And I showed him, like, documented how much water I was drinking and everything like that. And he was very, for lack of a better word, shocked of everything that I was doing. And he recommended adding in a sports drink, simply due for the electrolytes. And so the more I dove into that, it seems the more just plain water you're drinking, the more you're actually could be harming your body, as in demineralizing. And, the more you drink water, the more you're just going to be peeing out. So how do you retain and saturate your cells, actually hydrate yourself? So one of the things that I've talked to you before about is hydration packets or salt water as soon as you wake up and throughout the day. I tell my athletes about that, but also using orange juice after a hard heat session outside. Things like that are natural fruits or things that hydrate you and help keep liquid in instead of just flushing your body out with it, and making sure you're getting the minerals back in you that you need.
Yeah. I still, when you first told me that, I still to this day, every morning, first thing I do when I have my vitamins is I intake salt. Whether I add the salt to my drink or I put on a spoon with some honey, I always have salt in the morning.
Yep.
And I have noticed just from doing that, I have noticed the brain fog, it has been cut way down. As soon as I do that in the morning, like there really is not much brain fog after that. And then also just the possibility of headaches, having a headache throughout the day, which I think, again, unfortunately, is a normal thing for a lot of people. But just doing that, since I've just done that, I've noticed I almost never get headaches anymore.
Wow.
And I don't know if it's just that. I don't know what it, but I'm just saying, ever since I've done that, I rarely ever get headaches. Like, it's a headache is not normal for me at all.
So in a neurology book I've read, and I've heard it multiple times, that your brain is unable to actually feel pain. It's all referred from elsewhere. So your headache is caused by something else. It's not your brain actually hurting. So it could be, something pulled, something hurting, but hydration is huge for that. Lots of migraines can be cured by salt mineralization.
Yep. A lot of people, your last sentence you just said just helped a lot of people. Because a lot of people just don't even know that for migraines, and migraines they'll mess up your whole life. Yep. So sleep. How important is sleep?
So something this in 2024, my goal was try to not set an alarm clock if I didn't need to. Like, there were certain cases where I had to, and different seasons of life, but I was very wrong with the assumption and living my life of trying to add more hours to a day, if that makes sense. Yep. So that was something I had to learn the hard way from just pure exhaustion, and waking up at 4:30 to make sure I got my reading in every morning before I had like a morning routine. And then this year I just focused on sleep more, and I definitely felt a difference. I mean, after the first actual week and a half, I felt like a completely different person. And my training buddy asked me, he's like, "Hey, were you lifting again at 4:30 next week?" And I was like, "Nope." Like, I am not coming in, because I didn't have to, so I didn't want to. Focusing on sleep. If your sleep isn't there, everything else is going to suffer. Your decision making, your temperament towards your wife, towards your kids, your performance at work, your injury risk at work or driving to get to work, everything suffers because of it. We're not made to go. My mom always says, burning the candle on both ends, staying up late and getting up early. That's not optimal or, good for longevity.
Yeah. I remember in my early 20s going through a phase where my mom said the same thing to me. Don't burn the candle on both ends. And because she knew I was staying up late and getting up early, like 4 or 5 to work out. And I was like, no, I'm good. I got pre-workout. We're all right. That didn't last very long because I burn out.
Yep.
Yeah, and going through a recent season where we've had a newborn, who's he's now like almost 3 months old, and he just now in the past week and a half, 2 weeks or so, he just started sleeping through the night most nights. So you as a parent know how big that is.
Huge.
Because that first month and a half or so where he wasn't doing that was rough, and it was all because we weren't sleeping. We were going to bed like 9 or 10, falling asleep, and then he was waking us up at like 12 or 1. Then we go to sleep, waking us up again at like 4 or 5, and then I had to go to work. Like, and then my wife, had to be with the other kids all day who now are wired because they slept all night, and she's exhausted. And that's not fun. It's not fun. It's worth it, but it's not fun. But that I'm just bringing that up because of how important sleep is. And I keep seeing people say online, like, let's make boring popular again. So let's go to bed early. Let's wake up early, and read a Bible, pray, work out, go to work, come home, spend some time with your family with the phone away, and eat dinner together around the table, hang out a little more, go to bed early again. And yes, I know like guys like Dave Ramsey, for example, is really big on the do what you got to do to make money for a while. And I'm not going to necessarily say that's wrong for a season of life. And where he's coming from is, if you got to sleep for 2 hours a night, for a couple of years to get your family in a better position, like, then you got to do it. But so I'm not saying that's wrong fully, but what I'm saying is, in terms of our health, like what we're discussing, sleep is good. Optimal sleep lends itself to optimal health. If you're sleeping, 2 to 4 or 5 hours a night, your body it can't be at its optimal health. There's no way that's possible if you're only getting that, not enough sleep. Unless I'm wrong.
Neurology people who refer to the same correlation of lack of sleep and drunk driving or being intoxicated. The less sleep you get has a very similar effect.
I'm curious with the sleep part. What do you know anything about naps? Like is there something to somebody being able to take? I like you hear more like military guys would be like, oh yeah, a 2-minute nap, like that's all you need. Power you through the day. Or some people will say a 10-minute or a half hour is what you need.
Isn't that what Europe does?
I think they do something like that.
Yeah. The only thing I've heard on naps before is, I guess 2 things. One, for muscle growth, they call them growth naps. So it's like you get up, you train really, really hard, then you eat a huge meal, and you go back to bed for 2 hours, and then you get up. And so it's that recovery aspect. And a lot of the top end athletes, they're training really hard, but they always incorporate naps too. So as far as recovery wise, but can the everyday person do that? No. Yeah. especially if you're a parent. That's not the season that you're in.
Nope. No, I'm not able to work out in the morning, come in and take an hour or 2 hour nap and then still go to work and things like that. Maybe someday if I win the lottery or something, but I don't think that's going to happen because I don't play the lottery. So
I always say the same thing. I'm like, but you got to play to win, and I don't play.
Yeah. All right. I think this was a good, foundational discussion we had. So we'll, at another point, we'll get into other things like sauna and cold plunging and all the other stuff like that. That it's still simple, but I think it's not necessary for setting the foundation. So I just really wanted to help out thinking about the beginners, lay out some, good advice, good things for them to look into. I think we did that. So any other last words, last thoughts?
Small incremental things over time can make massive improvements. So start small. Be dedicated.
There it is. How do people find you online?
On Instagram and Facebook, we're at Ironmade Gym. On Snapchat as well.
There you go. All right. Thanks, brother. Until next time.
Till next time.